Hi, welcome to our webinar, Cornerstones of Semantics Integration. Very excited to have our partner on the line today, PoolParty, and we're very excited to talk to you about the topic of semantics. We'll go into a little bit more depth about this integration that MarkLogic has with PoolParty, and we'll also be showing a demo. We'll be walking through how the integration works and what we're going to be doing with some data that we brought in from the World Bank. So with that, I want to introduce the folks that we have on the line. We have Andreas. He's the CEO and co-founder of PoolParty. We also have Helmut, who's going to be helping out with the demo. He's the COO of PoolParty. We also have Stephen Buxton, the Senior Director of Product Management with MarkLogic, Patrick McElway, Senior Field Engineer with MarkLogic, and myself, Matt Allen. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Andreas and Steve, are you on the line?
Yes, good morning.
Hi. And
good morning.
We have Patrick. Hi, good morning, Patrick.
Yes, I'm here. Good morning to you.
Great. And before we go any further, I do want to say that the lines are muted, but we encourage you to enter questions in the Q&A box. That's going to be open throughout the webinar, and we'll be having some time at the end to answer any questions. We also have a box with some links to other assets if you want some introductory material in semantics or want to learn any more about MarkLogic or PoolParty. We encourage you to click on those links and download that collateral. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Steve Buxton. He's going to tell you a little bit more about what MarkLogic is.
Thanks, Matt. So people choose MarkLogic because it lets you integrate data better, faster, and with less cost. MarkLogic customers come to MarkLogic because they have data in lots of different places, in lots of different shapes and formats. They want to bring all that data together. They want a 360 view of all that data to get better insights across all the data that they have around their enterprise. And they want to do that quickly and easily. So how does MarkLogic help them do that? Well, with MarkLogic, it's easy to get data in, it's easy to get data out, and MarkLogic is 100% trusted. MarkLogic is an enterprise NoSQL database. It's easy to get data in because there's this flexible data model. Data is ingested as is, so there's no ETL to get data in. Lets you get up and running right away, no matter what kind of shape your data is in. That applies to structured data, unstructured data, semi-structured data, data with metadata. And as things change, as you get more sources of data, as the shapes of your data changes, that's okay because you can carry on ingesting as is and get value out of your data right away. It's easy to get data out. So we have an Ask Anything universal index. As these things come into MarkLogic, everything is indexed up front. Queries are very fast, very rich, and you can query across JSON, XML, text, geospatial, semantic triples, all in one database. You can query across these things alongside each other and also together. And unlike other NoSQL databases, with MarkLogic, you don't have to compromise on those enterprise features that you're used to with legacy database systems. So MarkLogic is 100% trusted and enterprise ready. It's 100% ACID compliant, and out of the box, you have high availability and disaster recovery features like automatic failover, replication, backup and recovery, and so on. And you also have enterprise-grade security, which is government certified through the Common Criteria program. We talked about a flexible data model. You can store data that you're used to from relational databases, perhaps. You can store documents. Data and documents are both stored, persisted in the database as JSON or XML. Both are stored and managed and queried natively in MarkLogic. You can also store triples in MarkLogic, RDF triples for semantics. And you can store data, documents, and triples alongside each other, and you can also intertwingle them. That is, you can mingle triples in documents. You can annotate triples by using document features. So MarkLogic has an entirely flexible data model, allowing you to handle data, documents, and triples all together.
Great, thanks, Steve. And Andreas, I'm going to hand it over to you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about PoolParty?
Thank you, Matt. So yeah, here's Andreas speaking. Give you a short introduction to the PoolParty Semantic Suite. In principle, it's based on controlled vocabularies, which is represented by the blue boxes here in this overview. So you see from the left to the right, there are modules which cover taxonomy management, ontology management, and linked data management, which is all, of course, nicely integrated with each other. So some of the clients usually start with taxonomies first, extend it step by step towards a full-blown ontology, and we will also show in the demo why linked data enrichment makes a lot of sense in certain use cases. Based on the control vocabularies and the knowledge graphs, it's possible to deploy a text mining service. This text mining service is integrated with the MarkLogic server, which means it follows the rules of your taxonomy, of your controlled vocabulary. So if documents come into the system, they will be connected to the knowledge graph. So it's not a term-based annotation like it probably was in former years. It's really a transformation of documents into RDF and the connection with the overall knowledge graph. So those features are represented by the green boxes. And on top of that, in the purple boxes, you see typical usage scenarios like semantic search, which we will demonstrate in a few minutes, recommender systems, content similarity, and if you go beyond search, we will also be able, on top of the knowledge graph, to do deep analytics of all the content being stored within MarkLogic. So I would also like to encourage you to watch a short video which explains these principles in under 3 minutes, and if you make use of the slides after this presentation, there's the link to this YouTube video. So how does that play together with MarkLogic? In general, it's important to see the usage of open standards of the W3C. The World Wide Web Consortium has published all the standards for data modeling, for data querying, when it comes to graph-based knowledge representation. And these semantic web standards are integrated in the MarkLogic server. So there's a Sparkle engine, there is RDF data support, and that's exactly the same case with PoolParty. So it was kind of a natural fit from the very beginning when we started to integrate those two technologies. And of course, it's also kind of an advantage when such two technologies play together, when both are based on those open standards. So,
Steve, I was going to ask if Steve had anything to add to that in talking about the architecture and this integration.
Yeah, so this second slide gives you a bigger picture, if you will, of MarkLogic and PoolParty working together. As Andreas said, PoolParty acts over the full text that you might find in text documents, XML, JSON. It also acts over the triples, where you're using parts of MarkLogic as a triple store. And so no matter what kind of data you're pulling in, or where that data is coming from, or what shape it's persisted in its original source, you can pull that into MarkLogic, enrich it, annotate it, do some very rich searches, including semantic searches, with the help of PoolParty. And on the right-hand side, you can do very smart search, analytics, and provide services, mostly REST services, to downstream applications and systems, which might be running desktop applications, mobile apps, that kind of thing.
Great, thanks, Steve. Andreas, did you have anything to add to that?
I think it's important to see the interplay between the knowledge graphs, taxonomies, and the annotated documents. When thinking of the importance of taxonomies to make, as Steve already pointed out, to do rich semantic searches, that's exactly what's the added value of this combined architecture. That with the help of taxonomies and knowledge graphs now, there are a lot of query types possible which haven't been possible before that.
Great. Why don't we jump into talking about some of the use cases?
Sure. So typically, the use cases on top of this architecture are the following. There is, of course, semantic search, which covers quite a broad field of different search types. We will demonstrate quite a few in a minute. The recommender systems can cover, for instance, the discovery of similar documents. It could be also a personalization service on top of the graphs describing the users and the documents. Analytics typically is exactly what we've been talking before. It's well done with a knowledge graph under the hood. It can discover links, it can discover trends and stuff like that. Then also quite widely seen use case on top of an architecture like that is dynamic semantic publishing, which means you can pull together assets from different sources and build a kind of a landing page or a topic page around a certain topic. Here again, the taxonomies are really helpful because the aggregation of things can be done quite automatically. Then the smart content authoring is something, when you think about the data quality or content quality from the very beginning, can be enhanced by the usage of taxonomies and control vocabularies in the background. So those are a couple of use cases, but I'm pretty sure the more you dive deeper into your own domain, you will find your own use cases based on such an architecture. So what we've prepared is, as already pointed out, the semantic search application. And just to get a quick overview of what you need to build a semantic app. So that's typically, for instance, documents or also semi-structured or structured data. Then as a second ingredient, you will need a taxonomy, which drives also the entity extraction and entity linking later. Sometimes you most probably also will make use of ontologies. It's not 100% necessary, but it of course enhances search queries later also. And last but not least, you can make use of other data sources, no matter if they are available as RDF or maybe also as a relational database. At least you can do entity linking and enrichment of your own knowledge graphs. In that case, in the case of our demo, we've used several such additional linked data graphs. So let's take a look on the content basis we've taken for the demo. We will show in a minute. We took around 5,000 documents from the World Development Sources provided by the World Bank. Then there's also a publicly available taxonomy in place, the so-called World Bank Group Topical Taxonomy. And that was linked with DBpedia and also with geonames. And as a result, we generated the following demo. And I'd like to hand over to Patrick.
Yes. Thank you very much, Andreas. And so I'd like to do a quick overview of the application that we built. Then I'm actually going to hand it back over to Andreas over at PoolParty to look at some of the back-end things, and we'll come back to some of the features in this demo in more detail in a moment. So I was one of the developers who built this demo application, and it's demonstrating this integration between MarkLogic and PoolParty. Now, this is an application that's designed to help researchers navigate the large body of World Bank publications. So it helps them sort through the documents that deal with a wide variety of topics and geographic regions in order to help them find the documents that are most valuable for them. So to build this, as Andreas spoke briefly about, we ingested about 5,000 World Bank documents that came in XML and free text. And we sent 2 different kinds of information over to PoolParty for semantic annotation. We sent structured metadata, and we sent the free text of each entire document. And from this structured metadata and unstructured text, PoolParty was able to use those taxonomies that Andreas just mentioned to provide some valuable topical and geographic annotations to the documents. And those annotations came back to MarkLogic as RDF triples. And so these semantically rich annotations, this knowledge graph, can assist the researchers in getting the specific information that they need, while also providing some valuable context for that information at each step of their research. So we're providing more targeted search as well as contextual hints that can expand the research into some pathways that might not have originally occurred to the researcher. So in a little more detail, these semantic annotations to the documents allow for more targeted search constraints. For example, I could choose a constraint on the topic of economic growth. And that's going to add a search constraint here and some more information on the side. So this constraint allows them to quickly find the subset of documents most useful. We also use the annotations as a rich set of links between the documents and the topics within them, this knowledge graph, which allows the researchers to discover topics they might not have originally identified as relevant. And also the graph RDF triple structure of this annotation data allows us to connect to the larger world of linked open data, like Wikipedia, for example. So in a few minutes, I'm going to walk you through some of these specific features. But to help you see just how easy PoolParty makes it to add these semantic annotations, I'm going to turn it back over to Andreas over at PoolParty, who will show you how the annotation pipeline was set up for this particular application.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. So after we've seen this quick first introduction to the end user perspective on the demo, I will now show you the back end of this system. So that's the login screen to the PoolParty Semantic Suite. I will now just log in. And as a result, I will get an overview over existing projects on that server. So that's the corresponding server with the MarkLogic suite. So as you can see up here on the top segment of this dashboard, you see I'm now connected to the MarkLogic server, which is also driving the end user application. As an underlying knowledge graph, we make use here of 2 different graphs, as already pointed out before. That's the geographic thesaurus and also the World Bank Group topical taxonomy. So I will open now one of those, which is the WBG topical taxonomy, which, by the way, is also available as linked open data on the web. So that's the dashboard of this project. So you see a couple of metadata here, who is the creator, which users have access to that, the short description, stuff like that. Here in the left-hand side, you will see the main tree, which is actually the structure which also drives the facets, as Patrick has already shown briefly. And those facets, of course, are in this world, we are here now represented by taxonomy. So let's take a short look here. You see here are so-called concept schemes, some top concepts, and further concepts if you drill further down. So as a little example, for instance, now I will go to urban transport. And urban transport, you see here, is in this taxonomy embedded as a sub-concept of two broader concepts, which is transport and urban development. There are a couple of narrow concepts on the right-hand side. You see here the labels being used for that, which is the urban transport as a preferred label. There are also synonyms and things like that. And that's exactly the information which later will be used mainly for the entity extraction and the semantic indexing, and also for the Sparkle-driven query types within MarkLogic. And last but not least, down here, you see also some mappings we've later made use of, especially the mapping to DPpedia. The geographical disorders was mapped to geonames, and from there, we will see in a second, you can retrieve additional information like flags for countries or the little picture we've seen for economic growth just before. And that's all done quite semi-automatically in the background. So the tool itself, it's a full-blown taxonomy management tool. It's very user-friendly. You can easily create relations between concepts like here with, let's say, rural transport. I could do a relation here with a simple drag and drop. I could add new synonyms quite easily with a short click here on alternative labels and start typing some synonyms if I like. So PoolParty is a quite user-friendly tool which covers all the enterprise functionalities you would expect from a taxonomy, knowledge graph, and ontology management tool. So that was the short overview of the back end of this demo we are talking here about, and I would like to hand over back to Patrick, who will now give us a more detailed impression of the resulting user demo.
Okay, great. Thank you, Andreas. So now I want to walk through several of the ways we've put these annotations to work on behalf of our researcher. So the data we now have to power this application, if you stop to imagine it, is first we've got documents in our database, and these are XML and free text. It could equally well be JSON. We happen to have XML documents for this application. Secondly, we've got some very fast MarkLogic indexes on the content and even some of the structure of those documents. And then third, now that PoolParty has annotated the documents for us, we have this rich knowledge graph of semantic relationships that are connecting the documents, the topics, and the geographic regions. So one of the first features our researcher is going to encounter are these hierarchical facets over here in the left sidebar. Now, these are based on the taxonomies that are built in PoolParty. They're generated with Sparkle queries that run across that graph, and it allows the researcher, for example, to browse topics. So I might be interested in education. I could expand this topic, head down perhaps to levels of education if I'm interested particularly in, say, primary education. And as I'm doing this, because of the nature of these hierarchies, I'm actually being exposed to similar concepts. It's similar to browsing a section of a library where you could find related books next to the one that you were specifically looking for. This is a way of providing some hints to the researcher about where their research might take them. So I can go ahead and choose primary education, for example, to constrain my search down to that. And so now I've got 200 documents that return for this topic rather than the 5,000. And I can further use facets in geolocations and other ways to narrow this further. One thing I wanted to stop and point out here is that this search constraint is also combined with some lightning fast MarkLogic indexes that allow not only for us to get quick search results, but we can also do very quick computation of counts by geolocation and by topics. So if you watch carefully the counts here and the geolocation area, for example, you'll see that they'll change as I remove the constraint that I just added. As the results come in, they will instantly be updated. So I can get a sense of the weight of documents in different topical areas or different geolocations. So at the same time that we're making the search more easily targeted, we can also use this knowledge graph of annotations to provide some context to the search. So the annotations, as we mentioned, are RDF triples. So we can connect out to linked open data on the web that are hosted elsewhere. And as you saw, as Andreas just showed, the pipeline is pulling in some of that linked open data from Wikipedia and from GeoNames. So I showed you this once before, but I'll go ahead and click economic growth one more time. And you'll see that this not only constrains the search, but it runs this sparkle against triples from Wikipedia and pulls that information in for the researcher into this info box, which, for example, has a description here of economic growth and some useful links to the researcher. And in addition to building insights from this outside world of data, we're able to mine our own graph for some useful insights. So this info box also runs a Sparkle query against the taxonomy that was built in PoolParty and uncovers alternative labels, if there were some, or in this case, related topics. And these related topics can themselves then be used as an additional search constraint. So I've searched for economic growth. I see a related topic of national urban policies. I can go ahead and click on this related topic and add it as an additional constraint to my search. And now I'm left with one document. And so if I'm very interested in the intersection of these two topical areas, this is likely to be a very high value document for me. And of course, alternatively, I could use this as an alternate facet for my search and remove the earlier facet on economic growth, and I can see things related to national urban policies, as well as synonyms coming from the PoolParty taxonomy. And of course, this works equally well for constraints based on geography. So if I were to go into the Americas, and if I'm interested in Argentina, for example, it'll pull up information about Argentina for me. Okay. So we can use the semantic graph of annotations in yet other ways to facilitate the search. So as I begin typing in the search bar, the application queries existing annotations to provide search suggestions. So as a researcher, I might be interested in food policy. And as I enter food into the search bar, I get a list of related topics. And this might help me to refine my idea of what I'm looking for. So for example, food and beverage industry might not have occurred to me as a search term or as a topical area, but it seems like a pretty good fit for what I'm looking for. And if I choose that, then it's going to constrain the search. And it turns out there's one document in this particular database that matches that topical area. Now, finally, I can combine these features with other powerful features of MarkLogic search. So I'm going to go back to the beginning. So let's imagine I'm a researcher who's interested in finding some case studies of fraud or corruption for an upcoming radio interview that I'm scheduled to do. So I could start with a free text search. So I could type in here fraud, and since I know I'm also interested in corruption, I might add a Boolean operator. I want fraud or corruption, let's say. And I can hit enter and run that search. So now I'm down to about 1,300 documents. Well, my interview's with a radio station in Europe, so it's probably best if it has some European angle. I can add that as a constraint for my geolocation facet. And I'm looking for something, kind of meaty, kind of salacious. So maybe I will choose this fragility, conflict, and violence topical area. And just for good measure, I'd like to find something that has some resolution to it, something that's a bit older. And so I can do a facet that's actually built on just some XML metadata that's associated with these documents, and choose a publication date of 2013 and before. Okay, so now I'm down to 4 documents, and I see that this top document, Investigating Corruption in Ukraine, it's a case study of an internet journalist. This looks like just the kind of thing I might be looking for, so I'll go ahead and click through to this result. Okay, so having clicked through to the document itself, you can see some standard information here that you might expect: the title of the document, when it was published, who published it, the abstract of a document, and also its full text. But over here, we can see some of the work that this knowledge graph is doing for us. Here's some recommendations of similar documents. Now, this is generated by a Sparkle query against the annotation graph. And for example, this is an interesting looking one: mass privatization programs. This might be something I'd like to learn more about, and it may relate to this case in some interesting ways. And if I want to know exactly why it is that I'm being recommended this particular document, I can take a look at the common annotations. And you can see here that it's taking some common annotations from the topical taxonomy, like banking, for example. And it's also taking some common annotations from the geographic taxonomy. So these taxonomies work really well together. And in addition to this, I can down here see some lists of the topics and the geolocations that PoolParty has annotated this document with. And each of these is now connected to linked open data. And that could help me to familiarize myself with these areas in preparation for my interview. And so, for example, I can take a click on the criminal justice, and this is linking over to the World Bank website. And I can navigate now a graph of topics related to criminal justice, such as justice at a more broad level or more narrowly regulatory enforcement, urban crime and violence. And I could click on one of these related topics and just get a sense of what's in the neighborhood of what I'm looking for. And this works very similarly for geographic regions. If I want to get a quick sense of Central Asia, I can do that and see some of the countries there and so on. So this is one case of how PoolParty and MarkLogic can work together to build this rich semantic knowledge graph, and then to put it to use to minimize a user's time spent finding the specific information that he or she needs, but also to increase the chance that that user might find unplanned connections from the larger semantic context while they're conducting their research. So with that, I think I'll pass it on to you, Matt, for some further remarks.
Yep, absolutely. So at this point, we provided a little bit of an overview of MarkLogic, and we've heard an overview of PoolParty, and we've been able to see this demo application that showed semantic search and how taxonomies help and how you're able to search and traverse across this graph of relationships. We're going to just sum up the benefits of both MarkLogic and PoolParty and how they work together to create this full semantic stack. Steve, why don't you just run through some of the benefits of MarkLogic?
Okay. So in the demo that you just saw, what part did MarkLogic play? MarkLogic is the enterprise NoSQL database behind that. It's storing, it's indexing, it's querying all your data, no matter where that data came from, no matter what shape it is, whether it's documents, data, triples, or a mixture of the two. We saw some quite interesting mixtures of documents and triples working together there. So MarkLogic gives you fast time to results because you don't have to prepare all that data ahead of time. You can just pull it into MarkLogic. MarkLogic indexes everything up front. You can start querying it right away. You can query the triples with Sparkle. You can query the documents with JavaScript or XQuery. you can query the two together with a mixture of the two languages. So fast time to results, the Ask Anything Universal Index, trusted data and transactions. So it's very important when you're dealing with very large amounts of very valuable information like this that you can trust the database that you're working on. You can trust it not to lose any data. So ACID helps us keep data consistent and also make sure that we don't lose anything if something goes wrong along the way. High availability disaster recovery features make sure that even when a computer goes down or a disk goes down or a whole IT center goes down, we still don't lose any data. We don't lose transactions. When you're dealing with those large amounts of very important data, you want security of access to the system and security of access to the data. And MarkLogic provides that at an enterprise-grade level. And as we said, it's government certified through the Common Criteria Program. And you want to be able to scale out. So as your application grows, as the amount of data you're using, maybe the number of sources grows, the number of users grow, you want to be able to scale out your application quickly and easily. MarkLogic is built on a shared nothing cluster architecture that lets us scale out very quickly on commodity hardware. No special hardware, no special connectors, cables. So commodity hardware and or the cloud. We can also scale up and scale down very quickly. So if you have bursts of activity, you can add nodes to your cluster very quickly, get through your burst, and then when you finish working with those, when you finish working through that burst of activity, you can remove nodes from a cluster and shrink down again. Very important, especially when you're either in a shared IT center where you're sharing a lot of equipment, or when you're working in the cloud and you're paying for nodes by the hour. And very fast. MarkLogic is built on very fast, very scalable architecture. So fast time to results, and as you saw in the demo, fast real-time queries to keep your users happy.
Great. Thanks to you for that overview. And Andreas, why don't you tell us a little bit about the benefits of PoolParty and some of the benefits when you put PoolParty together with MarkLogic?
Sure, thanks. So yeah, PoolParty in this scenario acts as the semantic middleware for enrichment and linking. It's based on standards. It provides a rich API, so it can be quite seamlessly integrated with MarkLogic. And in the back end, it provides a quite user-friendly taxonomy and ontology management editor, which is important, of course, later for the precision or to increase or to guarantee a high precision for the entity extraction and for the entity linking, most of all. So those are all the preconditions to act as a, you could call it semantic engine or semantic linking engine, which is doing the kind of magic in the background. And so what we've also seen is that we go beyond, let's say, simple master or metadata management in a way by using graphs. And with MarkLogic under the hood, it's now possible to make use of this very powerful query language called Sparkle, which does the querying over large knowledge graphs together with a document index. So by that, we go virtually beyond search towards a rich analytics software suite. And so as said before, data integration lives on precise semantics and precise taxonomies, first of all. The enrichment can be managed in various ways. So with PoolParty, you really can link vocabularies to each other. There's a quite powerful linking mechanism running in the background. I was not able to show that, of course, in this short time. And this intelligent search, which results from that, is exactly, I think, what's needed by several, let's say, industries and knowledge-intensive tasks which have to be fulfilled in our days. So that's, I think, the result. We could call that full semantics stack.
Great. And Steve, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think that's a really good overview of MarkLogic and PoolParty working together to provide the kinds of things, as Andreas said, that you just couldn't do with traditional kinds of databases on the one hand, or traditional kinds of search engines on the other. And we're seeing this, and I think it came out very well in the demo. The fact that you can query across all different kinds of data, different kinds of documents, and different kinds of semantic information all together. And that's where the real power lies, in being able to put together very rich queries across very rich documents and semantics and come up with search results and analytics that you couldn't come up with in any other way.
Great, thanks for that overview. Yeah, and I would just add that from my perspective, one of the impressive things I think is the fact that we were able to take this relatively complex app that we built relatively quickly and take a topic like semantics that a lot of people see as a very complex topic and maybe hard to use, and really make it easily usable and in the grasp of any organization that wants to build these sorts of information applications for really rich search, rich analytics, and use it on a trusted platform that's tightly integrated, that has everything part of this one turnkey solution. So with that, I want to thank everybody for joining today. That concludes the webinar. It's going to be open for Q&A. If you have any questions, put them in the Q&A box, and I'll do my best to work through the questions that we already have coming in. I want to suggest watching this video that provides a good overview of PoolParty, PoolParty.biz. You can pull up the video to get an overview. Another introductory book on semantics is Semantics for Dummies. If you want just more background on semantics, want to hear about some case studies for semantics in practice, I would encourage you to go to info.marklogic.com/semantics and download a copy of Semantics for Dummies. And here are our emails. If you do want to email us with any questions later on or want to set up a meeting to talk about bringing semantics into your organization, please feel free to reach out to us. So with that, I'll jump in to some questions. Patrick, one question, I'm going to direct this to you, and maybe Andreas can add to it, but the question is, what would it take to extend the demo application to integrate other document sources beyond just the data we brought in from the World Bank? I believe there's about 5,000 documents we brought in from the World Bank, and this demo is specific to that, looking at maybe what a researcher would use. But how would we be able to repurpose what you showed here for other types of applications?
Sure, great question. So I could imagine, for example, if you have a researcher who's interested in the World Bank, they would easily be interested in documents coming from, say, the International Monetary Fund or the European Union, places like that. So those documents, clearly, they might come in with a different XML metadata structure, but we could ingest them immediately, and so they would immediately be available for full text search and other kinds of search. But then we could also just send them over through the same process that we sent the World Bank documents through PoolParty, and provided that they had, to the extent that they had similar topical subject matter, or they dealt with similar regions of the world, and I would expect, for example, those places would, we would get this very similar kind of annotations. I mean, the exact same kind of annotations. And so with very little work, I mean, really the infrastructure we've already set up, we could take those documents, put them in that annotation pipeline, and they would immediately begin appearing in our hierarchical facets in the search results that are constrained by those facets. They would immediately begin appearing in the recommended documents. So if you had a document from the IMF that was more closely related, that dealt with the same topics as one from the World Bank, then it's going to appear at the top of the list of recommendations, and it doesn't really matter that the source happens to be something different. So yeah, it's the fact that we have a common data standard in RDF is one thing that makes that very quick and easy. Yeah, I think that maybe that's
great. Andreas, did you have anything to add to that?
Maybe one interesting fact here is the ability of map vocabularies to each other. So let's say the World Bank taxonomy is somehow, of course, similar to maybe to the Eurowalk or to a taxonomy used by the IMF or something like that. It can nicely be mapped to each other. So the already existing taxonomies in use can still be reused, so there is no need to harmonize on the vocabulary level. It's rather a matter of linking those to each other. So that's again actually the idea of linked data on the level of the taxonomies and vocabularies, which is used as a mechanism in the background. End users don't have to worry about that, so that's typically done by the taxonomists in the background with some help of machine learning.
Great, thanks so much. The next question, I think, Steve, you can probably start by providing a little information to answer this question, but there's been a number of questions coming in about the integration between PoolParty and MarkLogic, how intricate it is, whether it's out of the box or not, is it a phased integration? How does the integration actually work?
So on the PoolParty side, everything that PoolParty creates is, whether it's a taxonomy or an ontology or annotations, all those come in the form of triples. And with the latest version of MarkLogic, version 8.04, which was released just a few months ago, we have an API, one of the standard APIs that allows an application to push triples directly into the MarkLogic database. And PoolParty have made use of that API, which means that when you go to PoolParty and build or edit or modify a taxonomy or an ontology, you don't have to export that to a file and import the file to MarkLogic, and you don't have to do anything difficult. You just have to, as Andreas showed, you just say export to MarkLogic, and whatever PoolParty has produced, they can push directly into MarkLogic through this API.
Great. Andreas, anything to add to that? I think that was a pretty good answer.
Yeah, second aspect of that is so that taxonomy itself can be easily, with clicking one button, deployed into MarkLogic. That's the one aspect. The other one is that the entity extractor, of course, also generates an RDF graph in MarkLogic. So that's all put together in one database, probably enriched by Wikipedia, geonames, whatever. So you have all the data, all the metadata in one place, including the documents and the end user and also the taxonomists really don't have to worry that much anymore with tweaking around the data and importing here and converting there. So it's all quite seamlessly integrated.
Great, thanks so much. And Andreas, we have another question for you. The question is, how can the system learn from new content? How does the extractor, as part of the PoolParty suite, learn over time?
Yeah, that's quite an important question also, I think, because, of course, things move on. If you look at various industries, there's a constant production of new content, including new concepts, new terms, new words, phrases, whatever. So the taxonomies have to reflect this change over time. And therefore, it's possible to push incoming documents and content in general from the indexing pipeline from the MarkLogic side into the PoolParty text reference corpus analysis module, which means this text then will be analyzed, and by that we can predict which new terms might or should be considered as new concepts in the approved part of the knowledge graph. So it's kind of a learning loop which is implemented there, and that makes it possible also without a lot of additional data engineering and data analysis, most probably with another tool. It's all integrated in this backend I've shown briefly, where you can do this kind of reference corpus management, including a workflow and everything. So it's a supervised learning approach we take here, and that guarantees the end users and the users of this system that the taxonomies will constantly evolve over time and should be able to reflect to a very high level of quality to what the content is talking about.
Great, thanks so much. So that concludes the webinar right now. We don't have any more questions coming in right now, but I would encourage you, if you do have other questions, email them to us, reach out. As you can probably gather from some of the Q&A, this is a pretty complex topic, deserves attention. We really do see this as the future of search and managing data, and you got a sense of the power of it and how much you really can do with it, and the variety of use cases that it can be used for. So with that, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Thanks, Andreas. Thanks, Helmut, and Patrick and Steve. Thanks so much for giving us your time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Matt.